direction.
All right, we're recording, and I'm just saying thank you. It's remarkable when you take a trip and you're asked to reflect on it when the real learning starts. And for me, this has been just that. It's been wonderful. As I had sent out some notes to people about coming, I got an email back from a friend who's wise, knows me well enough. He says, Steve, speak slowly, have some pauses, and wear a tie. That's why I've got my tie on tonight. And I figured, well, I could guarantee at least getting one out of the three by the end of the evening, which I've got, and that's not bad for, old baseball player batting 330. I'll take it. My goal tonight is to, in fact, reflect on our trip to Japan and the meeting. And as I tried to do that, I also reflected on a story that some of the docs would have a sense of, is when I was a medical student, was given a chart to present that day to a professor. And I'm midway through and at the end, he says, now, when did the high blood pressure come on? Well, this is a person with renal vasculitis, or those, it's important with the kidneys. And I didn't know. I had just picked up the chart that day. I hadn't done the full workup. And let's just say by the time he got finished with me, I'll never forget his final statement, which was, had there been money in the chart, you would have found it. And from then on, I have probably been one of the better chart reviewers and history takers ever. And that also leads to this, when he said, Sean, I put some slides together. You want to go, give this little talk? Well, goodness, I had to go back and listen to all the videos and do everything else. And so I've got about 100 slides here, which we will not get through. We'll tell a few stories, but we'll get through what we can. So the goal for tonight is really to tell probably 3 stories: the why I did it, why we're here, some of the whys, the what, and the what was sort of the major content of the meeting and our time in Japan, and then the so what, once we have some of this awareness. So let me advance and let's see where we go. That didn't advance it. That didn't either. Which one, Sean?
It's click the arrow with the cursor.
Yeah, it's okay, down here. Maybe do that. Before it was, there we go. So the why, me, Greta, and you. Well, I'll let you all share on that. But why did I go to international physicians for the prevention of nuclear war? It's pretty simple. There's a lot of words, but it's one picture. And in fact, this picture goes back a bit. I took all of our family for 2.5 months through China and Indonesia back in the 90s. Why? Because I thought it was the country that might influence our family, their future as much as any country. And I think that's still probably true. And I think today I was out on a dog walk thinking, what's going to influence all their futures more than anything else? And nuclear sort of hit me in the face. And at that point, I'm not sure if I'd had coffee with Bruce yet, but certainly I'd heard Bruce speak. And so all this stuff started perking. Experience, meet people, reason to go, and to become more mature. Now that I can't do that. I have to hit the little.
Just hitting the right arrow.
Yeah.
Does that advance it?
No, it was before. That's good. Yeah.
Sorry.
But I'll try the arrow again. Anyway,
Laptop developing in person.
well, I was hitting it before, Sean, and it was advancing, so it has its own little. How many have seen this? Let me try the. Yes. You are not mature enough to tell it like it is. Even that burden you leave to us children. You say you love your children above all else, and yet you are stealing their future in front of their very eyes. I mean, think about that. This is a 15-year-old. You are not mature enough to tell it like it is. Even that burden you leave to us, for us children. You say you love your children above all else, and yet you are stealing their future in front of their very eyes. Well, that's what sealed the deal for me. So tonight I'm going to share my perspectives. This is also my non-disclosure. This is my past. This is where I come from. I won't go into any of it. But here's one I like. Anybody know that view of Seattle? I put it up there sometimes to say, let's see, do I have an arrow that points not onto the screen? No, actually, I brought one of these. I don't have my I don't have my old,
Laser pointer.
but I've got. Off to the left there, you can recognize the old Marine Hospital. That's where I started my internship and some of the training. Off to the right is Pill Hill, kind of harbor view in that area. Right down the center there, you see the Smith Tower. See, that's where I ended my career in a startup, an AI startup. Now, those are the things you see, and that's one of the reasons sometimes I throw this up here. But awareness has to do with also what you don't see. What do you not see on that in that picture, that photo?
I don't know.
Huh?
I don't know.
That's true. But you could see, and the rhetorical element of this is, why do you see Puget Sound right there? The reason you see Puget Sound is that the hill between Beacon and Pill was taken out in 1904 as they were trying to connect Puget Sound to Lake Washington. And it got partway there, just enough dirt to fill up Pioneer Square, and then politics and money happens, and they moved it out to Montlake. So thank goodness for me, because Jackson is a nice, easy ride down into town and an easy ride back out. But that's what you don't know. What you don't see, you don't know sometimes. So that was part of sort of the theme for us as we were going to Japan and trying to pay attention. So to tell it like it is, I'm going to read some summary statements, which would be sort of my statements of perception, not as it is, and then we can build a case as we go through this. Japanese are friendly and helpful. They showcase a vibrant culture and stoically follow rules. Now, you sometimes notice that when you walk in and forget to take off your shoes in the entrance of. Here's one there. Here are the Fredlins, and Holly O will still be here later. And also, when you think about Stoicism, what other country, do we know any other countries that had kamikaze pilots? Any other country? Kamikaze pilots? I mean, it's kind of amazing when you think about
We
it.
had a few, actually.
Huh?
We had a couple of pilots that did that.
But I mean, as a
It was
standard,
Program.
yeah, as the, second, their near perfect roads, trains, and infrastructure show what not spending on military can do for a country. It's just remarkable. And so I had to do a little quick data search. We've spent about $1 trillion a year on military in the US since World War II. And it's about up to 14 million on nuclear. Almost 14 million on nuclear if you add, anyway. I said trillion. Did I say million?
Yeah, you said million.
Yeah, let's bump it a few zeros. Trillion. These are trillions. 14 trillion on nuclear since World War II. Japan may not have, another impression that I had, and I will highlight for you all, should you want to get the PowerPoint, take a look at it. There's a lot of speaker's notes of some of my conversations with ChatGPT and some of the other models about some of these things. It's so, I love ChatGPT. But the impression that I had, which was Japan may not have fully accepted responsibility for their past atrocities when compared to Germany. Where did it come? You go through these amazing museums and you don't see anything about the massacre of Nanjing. Well, what I didn't even, but that was before the war, even during the war, what I didn't really know about until I was doing some research is the Manila Massacre. How many know of the Manila Massacre? Okay, a few hands. Over 100,000 in Manila in the Philippines, killed, raped, abused as they retreated out of the Philippines. I mean, it's unbelievable. Was any of that even discussed or highlighted? No, not at all. Not at all. So there are scholars who agree with me that they have not fully accepted or Nagasaki for us was just a name. It was the sister city, right? Sort of in the shadow. Well, we found out that in the 1500s, it was the gateway to the world for Japan. And that gateway was wide open for a period of time. Lots of Christian missionaries came in until they were no longer welcome. And so they then crucified on crosses about 26 in 1597, shut the doors to the country. And then there was this repression for about 2 centuries. And so that's a bit of the Nagasaki psyche, and I think influences the persecution of the Christian community. And then to add to that, the Urakami Cathedral, which was down in Nagasaki, was the largest Catholic cathedral in the entire Pacific area. The bomb hit directly on it, took it out. And so they have seen that as not only the city's devastation, but for them, sort of the sense of spiritual injury, and therefore others say, that Nagasaki perceives the bomb as both witness, suffering, forgiveness, and reconciliation. The Congress, I'll just say, big picture, fantastic. Great, actually a wonderful size group, 350 or so, small enough that you get to know people. Unlike the Congress in 1989, when there were 6,000. Okay, so it's like many things, it's atrophied. But it was a great group of people. My take homes from the Congress are these: nuclear weapons kill indiscriminately before, during, and long after their military use. Nuclear energy production is not clean and likely never will be. Those are my assessments. Newer organizations like ICAN, which is the International Campaign Against Nuclear Weapons in Switzerland. In fact, the executive director gave one of the keynotes. It was wonderful. Newer ideas that I had not really heard of or appreciated: nuclearism, nuclear colonialism, AI hallucinations. We've all heard a bit about that. Nuclear winter. So you put, new organizations, newer ideas, and past abolition steps forward towards elimination. For example, of biologics, of the chemical weapons, of anti-personnel mines, cluster munitions, and nuclear weapons, all offer examples in a pathway towards nuclear weapon abolition. Lastly, here, the numbers we need numbers for the multifaceted movement. And that's where I note here the number that were at the previous conference. So in a sense, Paul and Penny missed the slide here that was, I'll just go back for a second, which was Greta, who says, "You are not mature enough to tell it like it is, even that burden you leave for us children. You say you love your children above all else, and yet you are stealing their future in front of their very eyes." So I had said part of my reason for being here was to mature and tell it like it is. Thank you, Greta. Okay, so for tonight, we've done some general intros, and I'm still waiting for my dear wife to come in so she can participate. She may be here, but why don't we take just a few seconds, and everybody now, so just again, say your name and say one issue that you'd like to talk about tonight. Ken.
Ken Lambs, is our president, and former attendee at IPPNW conference. Boy, one issue, just the whole world comes together on this.
Okay.
Bruce Hamilton, stopping the ICBMs.
Joe?
Same one. That's the issue of the household. Yeah.
Okay. Donald?
Don Richardson, I'm here to inject a note of cynical disbelief that with the current administration, anything positive will get done.
Was that a statement or an issue you want to discuss or figure it out? Or?
That was a statement.
Okay. Penny?
Penny Fredlin, I am kind of interested, Steve, but just lightly, who could talk a little bit about this issue of nuclear energy and whether or not, because it's raising its head so much as a potential alternative, what is dangerous are. What could be a snag?
Here's my dear wife. Oh, who made, let's also, as we're doing quick intros here, again, there's some food on the table, some plates. Get up and grab a few things, some chocolate chip cookies. Thank you.
Who made the chocolate chip cookies?
Holly, who just came in.
Very good.
So please grab. Paul?
Yeah, Paul
Brennan, I read a very discouraging editorial today that with what's happening with Greenland and NATO falling apart potentially, that all European, there are going to be so many countries deciding we have to get nuclear. That the proliferation, I mean, we think it's bad now. What's going to happen if NATO falls apart and NATO decides the United States is not reliable and they need their own defense and they want nuclear to counter
Yep.
this thing. So
Yes, Carl.
You got enough.
Carl, but path forward, I want to know what path forward is with you, what IPPNW sees. I want to integrate that into what I've got going.
Joe.
Joe Bergson again. The thing that bothered me since I debated the issue of arms control treaties on nuclear weapons in high school is what the hell are we going to do with the nuclear waste, the radioactive waste that we're producing? And we have no way to store it. So we'll talk to you about it.
Chris.
Chris, I guess, one thing that interests me is, if you know about scaling laws, there's sort of a simple argument for why there is hope that nuclear weapons are actually naturally becoming obsolete militarily and strategically. And so I actually think that one way to think about our goal as nuclear abolitionists is to try to prevent nuclear war for the next decade or two. And then I hope that there's a real possibility that all the nations will realize that these things just do not make sense anymore at all, that they're literally militarily obsolete.
Optimism. Great.
Yeah.
Holly, name an issue you'd like to hear about tonight.
Well, I think you're kidding. Everyone talks about deterrence all the time. And that's been so successful so many years. So
I'm sorry, what was that?
Everybody talks about what?
deterrence and how successful it's been. And therefore, this is really not an issue. I mean, I thought.
Good old man.
I don't, but
We'll swing back this way and then catch up with Susan Lee. Sue?
Sue Rush, I guess I'd like to hear your perspectives on how we prevent nuclear war when we're in a period of time when our political leadership feels they can decide things based on their own morality. You know, the threats to our democracy and then rolls into.
Jim?
What she said.
Easy one. Yeah,
Well,
Joe.
You know, any thoughts you might have, Steve, on how we take the rather flawed memories of the past in both our countries and in other countries that experienced World War II and make it relevant for younger people and how they use the truth, you know, a larger vision of it, if anything came out of the meetings along that way, you know, and in a way, it relates to everything PSR does, the past environmental damage, the damage of economic inequality, not just nuclear weapons.
Before I move down there, I forgot Max is hiding way back there in the corner.
Back there, yeah,
Yeah.
I think relevant to your talk, like how do we keep the message and lessons from places and events like Dual Lives motivators for people, because we know that the further we get away from them, the less resident they are, the less people recognize what we're talking about.
Before we go to Sean, I see Joanne's hand up. Joanne, can you unmute and talk loudly?
Oh, yeah, I think I'm unmuted. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is how enthusiastic were the members of IPPNW about the treaty for the prohibition of nuclear weapons?
She asked how enthusiastic was the Congress about the treaty for the prevention of nuclear war. And I'll just answer that simply, very, very. So it's part of their declaration. we get through the slides, I'll highlight. We won't go to any of this in depth. In fact, the slide, again, Penny and Paul missed and Holly did, it's about awareness. Tonight's about awareness. In many ways, what we should do is circle up and have a free-flowing conversation. That may be where I go before I get through all this, but we'll see. But yes, they were very much thinking that is the blueprint. It is the legal blueprint. Sean.
Sean, I'm the nuclear weapons abolition program manager, and knew Steve had a lot to say, and excited that we were able to fill the room tonight. So thank you, everybody.
And while we're in this space, let me just say, Sean activated this. Sean activated, in fact, highlighted that the 40th anniversary, 40th, right, of the IPPNW getting the Nobel Prize for their work was this last December 10th. And with his rolling out the carpet for me, we put together an editorial that was in the Seattle Times. It was nicely organized and accepted, and so thank you. Lee, we're doing intros and issues you'd like to touch on. Just briefly.
Well, yeah, I'm Lee. Some of the ones that I heard just from the last few folks sounded really interesting. I don't have anything to add at this point.
Okay. Susan.
Susan, I don't have anything particular to add. I'd like to report positive things that, the reason people are, think we can do something, and I'd like to hear that.
Okay, thank you. So, as I introed, for some of you didn't hear, I was told to wear a tie tonight, speak slowly and pauses. Well, I've spoken as slowly as I can and had a few pauses. Now, fasten your seatbelts because we are going to move through slides for awareness. This is not an in-depth dive, okay? And we're going to start with our trip. I mean, we went to Japan. Surprising to me, I did a 150-page report on Japan in 6th grade. Now, 75 or 80 were pictures, mind you, or no, 7% were pictures, but I'd never been there. And so when I saw it was there, it just came together that we wanted to go. So this is where we went during our trip. And I'm just going to take you on a quick journey with me before we get to the conference, okay? Nagasaki. I already gave some of the background in terms of it's Christian. This is the Ora Church, built in acknowledgement of the martyrs that I mentioned earlier. This statue is not talked about really in the general, but this oversees the cemetery that I happened onto as I was taking an early morning run. And you can see the statue that is Buddha-esque and has a halo, sort of there's a Christian Buddha element to it that oversees the cemetery. Of which was not affected by the bomb, and some of the bombing victims are there. And so it's a whole different feel than the Peace Memorial that you see here, that was designed, and you get the sense, here is a Greco-Roman muscular statue, one leg up as Buddha-like with a hand to the sky. So I think this is sort of the acceptance of what came from the sky, while the leg down with an arm out is more the Greek or Roman aspect of we shall prevent the future. And so it's a whole different feel from the other statue, and something also which we don't see in Hiroshima. Everywhere we went, there were kids around listening, learning. Also in Nagasaki, they have lots of statues from other countries. And so this one's a Madonna and Childlike from Italy after the sort of Michelangelo, which is his only statue that during his lifetime left Italy, went to Brussels, which was a Madonna and Child. There's a raised hand. I don't know, Sean, if you, anyway, also here in Nagasaki, they have this, a memorial, and there's this water on the top. You see in the far back there, that's a glass structure, and you go down, and here's the light coming through this glass area. And these students were lined up perfectly, quietly, just standing there for a long period of time as they were really meditating, or at least appreciating what was going on. This is the map. I won't go through, and I can't point, but off to the left is where the statue is, if you want to come back for directions. I throw in a train here just because that's what we jumped on. They're so modern. You see in the lower hand corner there's a bathroom. I put that on to show my boys because we traveled third class through China in the 90s, as I mentioned, and there were no toilets. It was just holes in the ground. I think they would appreciate the modern aspects. But really the reason is, see down here, the orange path, the Braille path, they're everywhere. In 1973, one person died in a subway accident, and the nation passed the law that they would have these paths, and they're just about everywhere. I was noting coming out of Madrona Woods, there's a little one that's about this wide, but these are up and down the sidewalks in the city, all over the airports, makes rolling your suitcase tough. Anyway, on to Hiroshima. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Joe's there and is going to help us. We sent and we stayed at the Friendship Center. The story of Barbara Reynolds is amazing. I'm not even going to try to touch it, but I will say Sean has a video of the students that went the David Hall, what's called David Hall Leadership. Yeah. Emerging leadership group. 6 young women were supported through this endowment to go to Hiroshima, came back and gave a talk about it. And also another woman reviewed the Barbara Reynolds story. It's an amazing story. So it's a video, it's on a link at the end that you may want to look back at. But Barbara Reynolds described herself as a political, what did she call it? It was, forget it. Political, no, I won't say pygmy, but that wasn't it. Anyway, she was a total neophyte, and what she learned, she wanted to come back and bring back to the Habakasha and so forth. But we'll get into it.
Infant?
You know, it's funny. I had it written right here, and I just ripped that corner of my paper off. Maybe it's right here. She called herself a political zombie. And I would say I was a nuclear zombie trying to come out of, that's funny. All right, so Hiroshima, there was our Yoko, in the top center was our guide. One of the Habakasha is on the lower left with the interpreter. Really the most impactful part of the trip for these kids. We enjoyed our time with them as well. Here is their memorial in a sense. It's built after one of the old structures, and it's over an area where all the names of the victims are right underneath this. And you can see in the distance, the dome. This is the site actually in the city where the Hypo Center, where kids were around. And this is one of the few statues we saw in the Hiroshima area. But this is the atomic dome that you see the before, and now you see the dome as the after. And so you see a bit of the contrast between Hiroshima and Nagasaki in terms of here it is witness universal warning as to what can happen with these weapons, but a very different flavor than sort of more the spiritual awareness and insight of Nagasaki. From Hiroshima, we went to Kyoto, the capital of Japan for 1,000 years, the cultural center of Japan. There we see the Torii Gates, a shrine and Buddhist temples, 1,600 Buddhist temples in Kyoto, 400 shrines. And everywhere we went, we saw smiling kids and people dressed and so forth. From Kyoto was where I had my chance to do a couple bike rides, so I just shared. Here's their bicycle garage. And of course, you know, hearing a sax underneath the bridge is wonderful. And then everywhere I went. Now, these are, they think, not peace signs. This is supposed to be a smiley face, is what they're doing with their fingers pointed forward, but it's all out of them. And then my ride into the country, what I liked here, what do you think that is in the lower left-hand corner? It's just a box on a curvy mountain road, and in those are bags of salt. Oh. So this is the Japan, we couldn't find a garbage can in Nagasaki. They don't, you pack it in, you pack it out. You don't go through it. And the same, if you got ice on the road, you get out, you put a thing of salt down for the next person driving through. That's the way they are. They do take care of their own. From there, Susan joined us. I'll just highlight, thank you. We went to Kanazawa up on the north side. Again, Kyoto was not bombed. Does everybody know why Kyoto wasn't bombed? Yeah, Stimson. Oh. Stimson, our Secretary of War, Defense back then, had honeymooned there. And they had it high on their list. And he said no. And he went all the way to Truman to make sure it wasn't. Now, Kanazawa and our other areas, Kamakura, were not bombed either. So it's known as the Garden City, also center of the samurai. And whoops, I did hiding behind you do see the children up there. In fact, this is where we all heard that Mariners had won some big game, I think, out in that. And then I got a chance to drive, which I love to do anywhere I can. And there was one reason why I wouldn't do it again in Japan. But here's one of 10,000 tunnels that we got to go through. Here's the reason one of the reasons. So where I'm on the left, I've driven the left a lot, no big deal. But these are not these flexible little blinker things. This is when you get close to it, which I happen to get a little too close. It's solid steel. Now you have to report these to the police. Well, I did, but I didn't do it immediately. I waited till the end of the day. And then I got this guy here who's just scratching his head because he's trying to figure out which pole I had hit. Which pole did you hit? And I kept talking to him. It's down, it's miles away. He couldn't quite. Finally, through the interpret app, I said, the pole is solid steel. My rear view mirror is plastic. The pole won. And he goes, and sent me on my way. He was just worried that I'd hurt the pole. Anyway, so then we went up, drove through the Japanese Alps. They have, a few pictures here. The volcanic springs are wonderful. The tallest, what do you call it? Tram in the country, 7,000 feet. We hiked down. I love these signs, and we didn't exactly need an interpretation because you can kind of figure it out, but I love using my photo app to see it. And you can see it says, ring the bear bell to keep the bears away. We ended up in Kamakura, which is on the south side, just south of Tokyo. It's sort of their Zen center. And here's the second largest Buddha statue in the country, 120 tons of bronze. And this bell is in the campus of the oldest 12th century educational monastery in Japan, a Zen monastery. So we found Japan friendly. We found it traditional, and I found plenty of opportunities for selfies, so to speak. All right, we then went to the Congress. And can you find me in that picture there? I'm there. Way up at the top, off to the left there, top row. Anyway, so the conference focus was medicine, memory, and the prevention of nuclear war. Again, those who don't know, IPPNW is the leading international medical organization dedicated to the global elimination of nuclear weapons. These two links, this PowerPoint will be available. There are links should you want to go deep. The top one is going to have a YouTube recordings of many of these talks, and the one below has got the agenda. So, for example, everything in blue I've just put here, so these are recordings that I went back and listened to most of them and have a flavor. And so you see the opening plenary. I won't go through the details here, but I'll highlight that the plenary sessions were really quite good. The radiation health effects was excellent. These survivors, the Hibakusha, and in fact, this Leona Morgan from the Navajo Nation was also fantastic. I heard her speak 3 times. Also in Hiroshima, student session, Joe Hodgkins out at Harvard was wonderful. Nuclear deterrence does not ensure safety, and that was a good session. What happens when deterrence fails? Ira Heflin, we know, gave his bombing run talk. Ken could get up and give that. Ken was part of the. Did you give the bombing run talks, Bruce, back in the day? Yeah, they used to call the talks back in the 80s. You get up and you talk about what it would be like for a bomb to go off in the middle of the city and describe vividly. Creating nuclear weapons-free world, the TPN, Joanne, yes, it was had a whole session. And then the third day, reducing the risk of weapons in the local areas, in the Pacific area, medical community's role. And then the closing ceremony, since is humanity is one misunderstanding, one miscalculation away from nuclear annihilation. This was one of the keynotes. Carlos, I really appreciated. In fact, I got he sent me his talk. It's on the link down below here. And in fact, in handouts, which I don't think we have, I have about a 15-page handout that we couldn't copy, but will also be available should you want it. It's got it printed out, it's got links to it and so forth. Part
It's
of
on your Substack site.
Yes, it is, because I posted it in one of my Substacks, his full. He said the world's pathologic attraction to nuclear suicide strategy is the illness nuclearism. That was a bit of a shift for me. Nuclear weapon craving. Now I changed his words a bit. He said nuclear weapons, but I've talked to him since. He thinks there's an addiction element to this. So I said the nuclear weapon craving is a symptom of this illness. And the illness blurs annihilation threats as security and uses children and families as nuclear shields. So now, as we tell the story of the what here, we're going to go through a number of highlight areas, nuclearism's risks and symptoms, and I'm just going to show you a few slides. Most of these I took photos of as I'm sitting in the audience, so they're kind of cockeyed and you can't see them well. But again, the idea here is just a sense of awareness as to what it's about. We can drill down. In fact, if you want to drill down, there's going to be stuff in footnotes and all these. The rising nuclear risk in 2009 nations, I mean, we've heard the reasons why it's rising. China, nuclear exercises, our NATO friends needing to do these exercises to show that they know they've got weapons now and they're willing to use them to let Russia know, right? The hypersonic missiles. How fast is hypersonic? Anybody know what that means?
10 times the speed of sound,
How,
approximately.
so in miles per hour?
7,000.
Yeah,
Six or seven.
But the metaphor I like is somebody said it's like ICBMs are like throwing spears. Hypersonic is a bullet that's swerving on its own. Think of the difference. And then we talk about, Carl could talk about the Golden Dome to protect us from this stuff. It's as absurd as Star Wars was back when Reagan used that as the excuse to not get rid of nuclear weapons. We can't have a defense against this stuff. It is impossible. Anyway, so from the past to the present, most of the talks, I mean, a number of Japanese, but others, frame things always in this historical context. Here's this wonderful country. Yes, it was beautiful buildings. The students pray for victory at war, and the perspective of why things happen. Geography. Well, geography was the reason that Hiroshima was picked. You see, it's sort of a delta. It's 9 rivers that just run through this open delta. Mountains way off to the side, so it was a clean slate to drop a bomb and assess the damage, and that's why it was picked. In fact, they kind of knew this was going to happen. They said, no, we haven't been bombed. Tokyo 2 months before had been firebombed, and 100 to 150,000 people died in a strategic firebombing that was done in a way to make sure the city burned. I mean, and so this was happening around. Well, it just so happens the day that Hiroshima was bombed, a lot of the kids they'd sent to the country because they thought it was going to get hit, they brought back in to dig out roads in certain areas so they wouldn't burn from one section to another, thinking it was going to be a firebombing run and not the bomb. So a lot of kids were killed as well. Nagasaki was hit instead. It's narrow. It's got it's got hills, and so the spread was not as much. And the luck of Kokura is because this was the target the day they went out, and they flew over it 3 or 4 times, clouds and smoke. They hit Nagasaki. So art, shows what this looks like, but again, that spread is how many miles? That's 500 miles per hour. The blast zone, the heat. Hotter than the sun, 1,000,000 degrees, heat immediately melts and destroys everything down there. And so again, they show this contrast, the physical destruction. Here's the medical school, and there's doctors that live that were still there, but that's, there's still part of the building left, but pretty much gone. The human suffering by numbers, we can see if you squint that of the Hiroshima population, half died, 140,000. Nagasaki, about a quarter. And again, that may be the protected areas behind the hills, size of the bombs and so forth. This picture, we see a lot in different areas. Here he is at 16. He was on his stomach healing for 1.5 years. here he is as an anti-war activist with his shirt off. He, grew up and we saw lots of the kids drew lots of pictures, and some of these are even more graphic, where you just see skin hanging from bodies that they've drawn. Another way to communicate. But I think the photo that will stay with me the most is this one taken by an American photographer of this boy standing at attention at the crematorium with his dead brother in his backpack, waiting. And if you could really zero in his lip, you see blood on his lip. He's biting his lip as he stands there at attention, waiting to deliver his brother. Double radiation death. I didn't have a full appreciation. Most of this is in Japanese, but you don't need to know that these are the rays that come down, have immediate impacts. And we'll see a slide on that. It's the black, the black cloud. It's the particles that then get spread. And we knew it. But over time, I'll just highlight, over time, they understood in the 60s that, in fact, this did kill, and it became, in fact, part of the bombing strategy, was if you drop the bomb to the ground, not high up, okay, like our bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, if you hit the ground, more particle material goes up, forms the cloud, and that becomes the radioactive particles that can go hundreds of miles downwind and kill. And so they were calculating half of the kill would be from the radioactive fallout, and that became a military strategy. This is what happens when the radiation rays hits a pregnant woman in that area. So microcephaly from gamma rays, proportionate to how far they were from the epicenter. Two students started taking photos of these families and had to become entrusted, to do this. And before he was over, he got 6,000 pictures of these families. And I think there was only 60 or 70, only 25 still living. But it's a remarkable documentation of the ray effect on brain development of these kids with microcephaly and disabilities. Unseen impacts on future generations is summarized in this slide as well as any. It shows the immediate leukemias within years. Again, probably the radiation effect, whereas over time, more the particle effects maybe, but be it as it may, increase cancer all the way out 60, 70 years. And the myelodysplastic, get back to the bone marrow, continues out to age 70. The grief of the Habakasha, the stories that hit the students, greatly. And Holly and I heard there was a photo, 80 different people had been photoed, and these three-dimensional photos were remarkable, was in the center where the conference was. Leona Morgan from the Southwest presented several times. Here are the dots. Can you see what that says? Those are the dots of the abandoned uranium mines. So when we circle back up and talk about this, yes, how would we possibly clean up all that? And as she talked about it, our current cleanup is put a bunch of dirt over it and hopes grass grows. I mean, it just doesn't work. These are the impacts on the pregnant mother from radiation. They go through the deep, but it affects many parts of the body. And she's the one that introduced me to the idea, and I'm sure she's not original, but nuclear colonialism. That you go to Africa, you go to the third world countries, they're out doing the uranium mining, and they're doing it without protective stuff. It's the kids in these places still today. And China and India are the major promoters of uranium mining in Africa now, in some of the underdeveloped countries. These are the countries that produce the most. Which we can glance at. You don't see Africa on here right now, but that's where a lot of the push is. Other effects, here's from India, where, uranium mine in this area. Now, here you see bony defects. And think about it. Uranium is a positive ion that fights with calcium, gets into the bones. And so we got these bony deformities. What's notable, for example, the microcephaly, those families were told it was malnutrition for years, buried, even though they knew differently. And so this has been the usual about many of these affected victims, that they've been discounted. The story's not been told even as it was known, and we've been slow to accommodate. this German doc gave a wonderful presentation on just the uranium chain, but here's the one. See down below the red? That is the clean nuclear energy, right? That's the one area that's clean. But all the yellow boxes I won't go through, that's where all the toxicity is. And that's why you can't put that all together and say that any nuclear plant is clean. The future, when nuclear deterrence fails, not if, it's when, millions will die. And again, there's data here. I won't go through her chart so we can get on and circle up and chat. But even these kinds of graphs are misleading because you see the yellow, it says, if you look, the light damage zone. Well, I think that's the light damage, physical damage. That doesn't take into effect the hundreds of miles that we learned after the atoll blow up and down in the Marshall Islands. Those particles go for miles, and there's maps that show you hit Chicago, you hit DC, and you're going to take out New York City with radioactive fallout. And so and it depends where the wind's blowing. Well, there's people that now study this, and I'll come to her soon. Here's an example of nuclear winter that will happen, global climate change, etc. You can read about the details, but here's a report. You want to go deep into the National Academy report on rising awareness of nuclear war, environmental impacts, and nuclear winter that will happen with any size of nuclear war. And here's a researcher who's got an entire database that she's offering up to people to try to run different models with different size wars, different areas of the world, and so forth and so forth. So what? A path forward. Well, it seems so simple, really, doesn't it? A second bomb will not make us safer, she says. It does seem kind of simple. I mean, when people... So what is the answer? Why do we have so many bombs? One answer. Why do we have so many bombs? We had, what was it? We were up to 80,000 and then down to like 10 or 12 in the world now. So we went to 80. We took it down to 10 to 12 when Gorbachev and Reagan got it together. Could have gone to 0, but Reagan wanted to protect Star Wars. But why do we have some, and why do we still have many? Why do we want to build more? Come on, there's only one answer.
Fear.
Money.
Who's pushing it? Who's pushing it? People that make this stuff. They determine our policy. And whose political careers do they make with their money? The CEOs of these companies make $30 million, and they push an ICBM program that our military generals say we don't need. And Bruce will tell you it's only there as a nuclear sponge, meaning if Russia's going to shoot all their missiles our way, we'd like to have this nice area where nobody lives in Montana, Colorado, and Wyoming that we hit first as opposed to hitting the big cities, right? Anyway, the more I learn about it, I even get my blood pressure up a little bit. All right. It's a game of luck that we haven't had a war. And these are elements I'm just highlighting for you. So we had a whole conference on this. The woman leaning out on the right is the woman who has the database on environment. She's an environmentalist. It's first one of these meetings she'd ever been to. And other students and groups talking about nuclear deterrence as a myth. This lecture was not taped. I took about 40 different pictures of his talk. This is an academic AI expert who gave a wonderful talk, taking us through AI 101 to the end, but I'll just give you his bottom lines. AI does not care if we live or die. AI will always hallucinate.
What's that mean?
Meaning it will always have an error. Let's look at it this way. If you're doing something based on probabilities, no matter how small the probability is, if you go at it enough times, it will come up. So an algorithm, something that's developed as we developed a Math 101, if A plus B equals C, and that's built into the algorithm, you can do that over and over again. But machine learning and things that learn from data, create their own algorithms, are probabilistic. And they therefore always have by their very nature, some error built in. We see this in hallucinations, which means when I ask it questions, it gives me a smart answer from ChatGPT. It looks right, and I go check it out. They don't know what they're talking about, right? It's something totally wrong. They've gotten a few paragraphs lined up thinking they connected, but they didn't. We can, we'll do another whole thing on AI sometime. But anyway, AI speeds leaves no time for humans in the loop. We always talk about that, humans being able to make decisions. I mean, not only does AI leave no time, submarines with nuclear off of DC can get bombs into DC within minutes, We can't have a golden dome that's going to protect from that if people want to. And therefore, he says, he's an AI expert. The only answer is total nuclear weapon abolition. There's his summary. So our path forward. I'll just say it can happen here. Who's read the book It Can't Happen Here? Anybody read? It's Sinclair Lewis's 1930s book, It Can't Happen Here, that lays out the absolute game plan and absolutely almost to the point of now ICE being a vigilante group going around killing people. What he said could happen in America back in the 30s. He built it around Huey Long, who then was assassinated, but then continued the storyline. And it's unbelievable. I mean, I had read it or listened to it before Trump came into power and have just been following it almost chapter by chapter. It's all happening. But it can happen here. And it is happening here. But this is the upbeat. That a lot of stuff has happened that I know nothing about, quite frankly. The Biological Weapons Convention, Chemical Weapons Convention, Mine Convention, munitions, and the TTPNW. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but it does lay out a complete legal framework for non-production, non-possession, non-use, and it was created. Let's see, 122 countries adopted the language in 17. I think we're up to 75 have approved it as a legally constrained and as a country. And I think we're up to 95 have tipped their, what do they call it? Have signed it, but have not yet approved it within their legislatures. Yes, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons delegitimizes nuclear weapons by centering their catastrophic, is the byline. Yep. So here are the actions. I'll show you one example of each action and then we'll close it out. Educate. So here's another one of the educational slides that tossed up. The elimination of nuclear weapons is the only safe path. Adopt no first use, remove tactical nuclear weapons, protect facilities. Physician conversations, best part of the meeting, right? So here's most of our American group. You can kind of see me off to the left there. Here is a number of the people that I had fun going up, say, hold your tag, let me take your picture. Here's Sweetheart from Norway and the group from Japan. Advocacy. We went to a conference in Hiroshima, which just happened on at the same time, the World Nuclear Victims Forum, Bakasha on the upper left with Leona, who's the lady from Navajo Nation. And they had some posters out in the area. This again highlights China and India, you can see on the bottom there, and they're pushing nuclear mining in Congo. And you can see, and if you squint, you can see kids out there, no protective gear out in these mines. Organizing. This is Sean 101 to the postgraduate course. Thank you, Sean, who's put together the Northwest, what's the A? Association or affiliate? Against, thank you. Northwest Against Nuclear Weapons. It used to be Washington, so it's Northwest Against Nuclear Weapons, NWANW. You'll see that later. But here is Leona's group down in Arizona. They're now mining around the Grand Canyon. But to get that uranium out, they have to cross Navajo lands. And she is, you cannot cross our land. So she has a whole nonprofit here, No Haul, where they're out organizing and trying to stop.
Oh, no.
Thank you. Hall no, thank you. Hall no.
Hell no.
Oh, no, you're right. You got it. So the indigenous nuclear resistance. In terms of declarations, I would say as we saw the art and so forth, and you see this sort of, statue, there's nothing that communicates quite like art and sculpture. But the conference did put together a series of declarations. I will not read them, but I did highlight the one that I've already highlighted with my wallet, right? Escalating nuclear weapons spending because somebody's profiting is both a risk that we don't talk about, taking all that money away from our education and everything else, as well as the profit that pushes our political and military people to want to have this stuff. And then you get presidents that say, well, we've got them. Why not use them? I mean, that was I believe, a Trump comment at some point in the past. So defunding may be, and in fact, one of Sean's recent speakers, Bo Jacobs, has a recent book. It's on my series of books in the back of all this that we won't go through. He thinks that is maybe the number one strategy we need to focus on to try to bring to try to close. But it's not one. It's many strategies that we've got to use. And so there's different organizations that are focused on this. And here's a list of the arms manufacturing companies, if you want to go back and look at it in detail or ask ChatGPT. But anyway, act local. And so these are links here to the conference that Sean put on last spring, which have a keynote speech and so forth, which was the Northwest Against Nuclear Weapons Coalition Conference, which was phenomenal. I didn't make it to all of it. I passed a kidney stone through much of it. So even the parts I was at, sometimes I was not. And then.
Were there universities represented at that coalition? You said it was.
Well, the coalition is around our state. It's a coalition of states.
Yeah.
And the conference at Seattle U was multiple different people, organizations, international speakers, and so forth.
Oh, so not necessarily university.
No, correct, right. And Sean's got a YouTube channel that has both some of the Thursday evening talks, the one I mentioned about the David Hall scholars that went over, as well as some of these programs are there and available for anybody's late evening viewing, are wonderful. And so, we act local, think global. I just go back and highlight this because this is the awarding of the IPPNW Nobel Prize. And the two men, one in and third in from the left, is Dr. Lown, who is the cardiologist from Harvard. And next to, but
On the right.
on your right, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going, yeah. Right here, and there's the Russian Chezov. This is Lown.
Yeah.
And this is Chezov.
Yes.
Who were cardiologists with major impacts on coronary artery disease, got together, had a conversation, and were instrumental in affecting. So we hear the story Reagan and Gorbachev. There's also another part to that story that you can listen to one. Helen Caldicott spoke to the evening group and had a little bit of a different twist on how the all men's group did not have her as a part of it. Okay, so there's always more to the story, right? But anyway, they did get the Nobel Prize back then, and as we move forward, see the woman on the right here, Olga Mironov, is his daughter. So here she is, granddaughter of Dr. Chezov, right, who was at the meeting and is sort of leading the scientific diplomacy still with Joe Hodgkin from Harvard. And so they've had several meetings together, and that's ongoing and positive. So this was from Carlos's plenary speech. Peace cannot be sustained through intimidation. It is not simply the absence of war or even the absence of conflict. Peace depends on the nonviolent resolution of conflict achieved through tireless diplomatic efforts. It requires building bridges, forging agreements, and creating opportunities for cooperation. It requires justice, equality, and rule of law. Pope Francis was in Japan in 2019, and he made it very simple. The use of atomic energy for war is immoral, just as the possession of nuclear weapons is immoral. And so here, if you have not seen, we can't get it onto the screen, but if I turn this around and you want to stand up and stretch now, and I put this on a little larger computer screen, do you all remember? Now I can't get it to activate here.
This is the Lyndon Johnson ad.
Well, now it's twirling.
Try it out.
I had teed it up once before. Now it's not doing it. Maybe it's because I'm in somewhere else. Because it was activated previously.
Okay.
This is the video. That you're starting.
Yeah, trying to.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm just gonna leave you the video. What's it? Daisy Flower. Is that what is it? Daisy Girl. Daisy Girl. Yeah, Daisy Girl. You can pull it up. It's on YouTube. What's remarkable is
Is it the anti-Barry Goldwater ad?
yeah, they had it up for one day. Johnson approved it, but of course, one day in, it got such pushback. He said, "Oh, take it off. I didn't approve that." It had done its damage.
Coming through on Zoom.
Okay, it's coming through on Zoom, just not here.
Yeah.
It's pretty weird.
Well, it was playing. Anyway, but yeah, it's fairly dramatic. 5, 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 7, 6, and then you zero into her pupils. We get to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and vote for them. Anyway, I'll say if you want, I can later go through. Here we go.
Wow.
So it's 8 till 8.
You have more slides sit there?
No, I'll say if you look.
That's not 100. Where are the rest of them?
Well, they're.
Whoops.
Yeah, I can in 1 minute show you what's there if you want to come back and look. They were just resources.
Yeah, why don't we thumb through them really quick?
Okay, just
Okay, I'm gonna put them back here
We'll
for you.
download this PowerPoint.
yeah, and those are. I did go through. Let's see, what did we take? I took 2,000 and some photos of Japan.
All right, well, I'll let you.
The museum. I mean, the museums are.
I'll let you find your space.
Yeah. Where are we?
Start.
Okay. Now just get me into that one right there. Right there. Yeah, that's the end.
Okay.
All right, and then. Okay, we'll just go.
There you go.
Yeah, these are just ones I just threw in, but I can highlight very quickly, this is a conference put on by PSR. That's 11 Monday evenings that I'm taking on. It says advanced training, but under there I can't see on here, it's radiation health risks. And that is videoed and available should people want to, but the curriculum's there as well. This is the declaration. If you want to read the IPPNW declaration that I've just put in for ease of access. These are some of the articles that were written by a number of the members of these august organizations. This in the New England Journal this has happened twice, where these were published in like 100 to 150 medical journals around the world on the same week. So it was so it's an international group of authors talking about reducing the risks of nuclear war. And this happened, there was one in 83 and a follow-up, I think I've got here, ending nuclear weapons. Again, I don't know how to get rid of this stuff.
Last summer in 2025.
Yeah.
130 journals.
Yeah, 100, okay, thank you. Pretty remarkable. And again, the one in 23 is one that I had read just about the time I think I was taking my dog walk and thinking, this is the biggest risk for my grandchildren. And so that summarizes that. Then I put, I think there's links in this, but certainly the article at New York Times and Wall Street Journal in the last couple of years have had a whole series of excellent articles here. And then a number of books. I haven't read them all, listened to them mostly, but Command and Control is one. Unbelievable. If you want to know about all the near misses and all the accidents and the stuff that's happened and dropping bombs from airplanes that didn't go off. And I mean, it's unbelievable. And it truly is luck that we haven't had a major disaster. We have had some disasters and you just don't hear about them when a silo goes up and people are killed. The Doomsday Machine, everybody knows Daniel Ellsberg but for other reasons. The same time, he copied nearly 15,000 pages on the nuclear stuff that then got, in a sense, misplaced. They were coming after him. He had his brother hide him. They hid him in a dump, and a hurricane hit, and all of his papers were lost. And that's why it took him almost 2 decades before he could write a book, because he didn't have the original documents that he was going to write about our militarism and nuclear command and control issues, and that we had planned. I mean, back in the 60s, if we thought a missile was coming and somebody made the decision to hit the button and it was coming from Russia, a missile, the button would have released our missiles to hit Russia and China, even though China wasn't involved, at the probable loss of 200 million people in one day. That's the military psychology then and planning that Carl can speak to, but I don't believe probably has gone away. Anyway, nuclear war scenario. I did read The Coming Wave I put in here because Bill Gates was his favorite book, but I read it before Bill Gates said that. It's about controlling biotechnology and AI. In the last quarter of the book, he lays out what we need to do. And to me, it's a great, in a sense, wide swath of what we need to do as a country to try to control these amazing technologies. And it's not simple. It's just kind of like he has 8 or 9, 10 areas that said we must do these things, and we need to do the same in nuclear. And what's kind of interesting in the book is he looks to nuclear as part of a success in terms of the history. And it has been successful relative to AI's been here for so short, but I think it's a great read about AI and biologic worries. Steve Olson's local. We did a book report on this. And this is Bo Jacobs that Sean was just talking about, his new book, really about, a lot of the toxicities have been all around us and we just haven't known it, that are affecting all of us. I just put this because this is an old, Montana is not a journal. I just like the title, Back from the Brink. But the warheads book, let's take out warheads and put in solar. Anyway, here's some books. dead reckoning. This goes back in the 90s. And then I put this in only because I was communicating with Carlos about the Bert Becker perspective of fear of death being the underlying issue with the psychopathology. But he and I will. These women helped with the PSR course. Some other organizations. Here's about the World Friendship Center. I'll just flip through these. Golden Rule, ... and I'll end with that. Which I can't see, but it's just a quote from Martin Luther. So those were the resource slides. Anyway, so no reason we have to stay to 8:30, but I'd love to have people, let's go back to some of the questions for a few minutes. People have answers to what were the questions about? About ICBMs, nuclear energy, nuclear expansion, what can we, do in this current administration? The idea that our ICBMs are becoming, and nuclear in general is becoming obsolete. Who would like to pick up one of those and talk about it? Okay, how do we get young people involved?
Steve, it's safe to say that the Democratic senators are 100% on board of doing something. I want to first clarify if that is true.
Do you mean Democratic nation or in our state?
Our senators.
Our two senators.
Get the nation to do.
Okay, let
something with
me ask Sean to respond to where he perceives us to be. And do you mean senators or representatives or both?
wanted to start with the
Okay.
Party. So I mean, this is one of those examples where the local party believes one thing, right? So your local county party, even your state party in Washington really says oppose nuclear weapons, but the representatives do not. So for Village Iapol is very aligned with what we're doing. Adam Smith supports some of the positions, and then by and large, the rest of our representatives do not speak out or co-sponsor legislation on this issue. So that tells you.
What on with that?
One thing is that they don't hear enough from constituents, right? So that's part of what we're trying to do is rebuild, grassroots energy around the issue. People aren't calling them; they're not writing to them enough. People aren't protesting enough. Y'all probably heard from at the beginning, right? One of our wonderful organizers in the northwestern corner of the state, right, delivered a petition with 1,000 signatures to Representative Rick Larson, right? That's the kind of thing that we're trying to do with our work is really bring that voice together, be loud, be proud, and move them on these issues. But they Steve mentioned money was a problem. A lot of these representatives do receive money from weapons companies that are invested in nuclear deterrent. So we really gotta rebuild that movement and civic engagement. So that's why it's really wonderful that y'all are here today.
Well, how do we keep any kind of mistakes under wraps? Because I'm just thinking when Holly asked about getting young people involved, if there was some kind of, more than just a 3-mile island, some kind of silo, something that brought it to attention, or a Hollywood movie, I don't know how they.
Yeah.
This is pretty historic for them to look at 19.
Media, right? If it's not reported, how are people going to know? I mean, people might in the immediate vicinity might know, but there's been cover-ups of, Steve mentioned there was a time in history where they put nuclear weapons on planes and they were constantly in the air, and the United States government lost several nuclear weapons in the ocean and even in parts of the country. So
Greenland.
yeah. So if the media doesn't report it, how do we know?
And there's a general flavor. I mean, the words came up, the taboo. I mean, what was it that got us to try to, I don't know, whether chemical weapons are completely eliminated from the world, not, but major changes in biological weapons. You know, there were movements that said these are not okay. And, you know, nuclear weapons targets citizens directly and indirectly more than these other weapons. But the taboo has drifted down because people have gotten so used to thinking about them as just other weapons. So I guess that's part of the educational part. I don't know. Bruce, thoughts? Ken, thoughts? You guys have been tracking this for a long time.
Well, I think a little history, maybe in order. After the arms control treaty was in effect by Reagan and following Reagan and Roosevelt, whole interest and concern with nuclear war and so atrophy. And now atrophy was reflected in organizations like PSI. At one time, PSI had over 50 chapters in states around the country. And atrophy for about 20 or 25, reflecting the lack of public concern that we all know about. So when what WPSR reflected about in 2011, there were only 3 board members, no money, and the decision was made to dissolve the chapter if we couldn't put it back together. It was that close to ending. And Ken was one of the founders 40 years ago. I agreed to step in and try to resurrect the chapter, and we did. We have a vital chapter right now. But what was missing was any kind of sustained public nuclear activism. And my belief was that we needed to form organizations, not just individuals, for the multiplier effect. So I founded Washington Against Nuclear War in 2012 as part of a reconstruction of the chapter, with the idea of putting together organizations that have dozens or hundreds of members, not just recruiting individuals, in order to get at what Sean was saying, was to magnifying the number of people that are trying to create and recreate an anti-nuclear movement. Well, we've been working on that for another dozen years, and we made only modest headway because the number of individuals involved is still fairly modest, even to WANW and now the Northwest against nuclear weapons. But that's the whole idea. We have to have more public pressure, and there is not a sustained anti-nuclear movement publicly across the U.S., let alone even in Washington. So it continues to be an immense struggle, but that's why we're all here.
Yeah, we all can join the Northwest Against Nuclear Weapons Coalition by going to WANW.org and check it out. Yeah, it's an uphill battle, and people don't want to think about it.
I sent a note to a couple of people in the room. I was at a Kim Schreier fundraiser a month and a half, 2 months ago. It was a couple of days after Trump had talked about starting nuclear testing again, possibly. And so I asked her, because she's in a purple district, whenever I ask, she says, I need to be careful. I can't be out too much in front on this issue or even on climate change and so forth, which, I acknowledge that. I understand that, why you sort of are a little bit careful. I said, but now that Trump has said that we may start nuclear testing again, is this an opportunity to at least make a comment? And her response was that personally, she's concerned, but that nobody had raised the issue. And that in all her meetings with her constituents for quite some period, nobody had expressed concern about nuclear weapons. And she said, if I was getting that, then I could have a reason to focus on her, do something.
I might add that we immediately phone banked her district after that. So she has heard.
So
at this
maybe,
point.
but it does make a difference.
With the coalition,
So just, most of as individuals, what you can do is you can make sure to call your elected officials and let them know what you're concerned about, even if it's just a sentence, I'm concerned about this. They do pay some attention to that. The other thing that I would be remiss if I didn't say that as chapter president, Joe said to go on to Northwest Against Nuclear Weapons and look to see about becoming active. Get active with our chapter, Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility. And one thing you could do, obviously, use your voices, but we could use donations. Now, I wasn't put up to do this, but you know, as long as I have the opportunity, that's how we pay for our staff in the office and to be able to do things.
As a friend of Steve, I must say that until he got as involved, I of course knew this was an issue. But why was it in front of my mind? Why wasn't it up there in front? And I almost wonder if we have catastrophe fatigue. That in a way, especially young, like our kids, it's climate change. They're like another thing to worry about. You know, it's not just that there's serial shooters in the schools. I mean, it's like, okay. And I know what they mean, but I'm surprised myself that when Steve talked about it, I thought, I need to read more about this. I have kind of put it in the past. And I don't know why I can say that. I mean, I feel guilty saying it. But it obviously had been almost something, I didn't want to stir that bear. There were enough other lions and tigers in that.
And we thought we had solved it. I mean, with the star trees and so forth.
I know.
You know, Bruce mentioned all the chapters on the country. We thought we had solved it. Yes, our chapters basically sort of went away. And